712,000 residents means that DC has more people in it than Vermont and Wyoming, two states that get two whole-ass senators each. It's also similar in population to Delaware, Alaska, and several other states. So that argument that there aren't enough people there is bullshit.
It's bullshit.
Hello, and welcome to Hysteria. I'm Erin Ryan.
And I'm Alyssa Mastromonaco.
So, Alyssa, I've been thinking about the UK a lot just because they're in the news for various reasons. And is there anything in the UK that you're kind of jealous of?
I feel like they have extremely lush green grass.
Mm-hmm. The gardens.
The gardens. That's a much better way of putting it. I'm jealous of the gardens.
Yeah. English country gardens, indeed. But my main thing that I'm jealous of the UK about, seethingly jealous,
is
the use of the words jab for shots and scheme. Like, jab and scheme are used in, like, newscasts. I listen to the BBC World Service news broadcast every single day, and I just, like, am so jealous that our newscasters aren't talking about getting the
Erin,
jab.
How this goes to the fact that as two very different people, we share a brain. Because I listen to the BBC Global World podcast every single night before bed. And on the rare occasion that the person doesn't have a British accent, I don't listen. I'm like, who is this obvious German they have sitting in? And I can say that because I'm German. But like, you're totally right about the use of the word jab.
And then also scheme, when it's like the government schemed. It makes it seem like everybody's like really...
It's all just a big game of Clue.
Yeah, I love it. We've got some news to get to today. We are recording this on a Wednesday, as you probably know, because we complain about recording on Wednesdays a lot because news tends to happen on Wednesdays. However, this week, the news happened on a Tuesday. So on Tuesday, Derek Chauvin was found guilty on all counts for killing George Floyd on video. A video that was watched by millions and millions of people, a video that spurred nation and worldwide protests, a video that led to a trial that seemed like it was very lopsided in who came prepared and who was just kind of there to fuck around. Alyssa, how did you feel yesterday on Tuesday during the reading of the verdict?
I mean, well, first of all, it's like, you know, you try to go to take a shower, you come out and you're like, you have 15 minutes until the verdict's going to be read, because I think it came back faster than anybody could have thought. Now, all of us, you know, armchair Law and Order watchers were like, ADA Barba always thinks that when the verdict comes back, I mean, that means it was very decisive and one side made a very compelling case. So I think that we were kind of like, you know, like you watch a horror movie through your fingers. We were like, is it going to be good? And then it did. And I think, you know, how can you not cry? I mean, you hear the first charge, the first count being guilty. You're like, okay, that's one. And then when all three were, I mean, I think so many people thought that it wouldn't be 3 for 3. And it was, as they say, it's accountability, not justice, but it was pretty great.
I mean, how fucked up is it that we live in a world where something that seems so obvious, cut and dry, we all saw it. I mean, not all of us
on the video.
Yeah, like we all saw it. We all, like, there were witnesses all over the place. People who stepped outside of their daily lives in order to try to make sure that this police officer faced some accountability for this. And we were still worried, like, how is this going to get fucked up?
Right. Well, they said that this is in Minnesota. It is the first case of a white cop being convicted for killing a black man. So I think there was a lot of reason for people to be dubious.
Yeah. You know, something that I think is interesting is like there's been a lot of conversation about this, and What a Day's episode on Wednesday on this was really good once again. But I think, you know, people are talking about all the reasons that it's hard to convict police officers when they kill people. And one thing that I've noticed, though, is that we're not really talking about the jury. Like, the jury here is like 12 people that both lawyers could agree on, who saw what was in front of them and didn't side with the police. They didn't side with the police officer who did this act of brutality. And something about that made me think that even if police unions have ridiculous standards, even if state laws are behind, even if federal laws are behind, public sentiment, if we become a nation of potential jurors who always judges police who kill people as like potential murderers, like that is a way for us to sort of backdoor achieve police reform. It sucks. Like I wish the laws would change, but the fact that all this diverse jury saw this and they were like, yeah, he's guilty, and it took them 11 hours makes me think that maybe a change in public sentiment means that the beginning of the end of police impunity, maybe we've arrived there.
Well, I mean, you and I have talked about this a bunch of times, how culture really always does outpace policy, right? Mm-hmm. It kind of has to. It's the forcing mechanism. But yesterday when the judge, who I felt like he read the verdict at lightning speed, I was like, whoa, it's never this fast on Law and Order. And then he polled the jury, and every member of the jury had to say whether they agreed, whether this was in fact their verdict.
Juror number 9, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 19, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
That's when I kind of got goosebumps, because all of these people from different backgrounds all saying, yes, this is exactly what I believe and this is my verdict.
It's weird because I live in Los Angeles, the land of just unnecessary police helicopters everywhere. And I live in a neighborhood in Los Angeles where police recently came in with a really over-the-top show of force against a homeless community in a nearby park. And it was crazy yesterday to see how many people were just annoyed by the police posting up and being ready to get in a fight. And then they didn't get the fight that they appeared to want, which I found to be. And then there were just like helicopters all over the place, and everyone just kind of went about their lives because it seemed like in this specific case, the right thing was done.
Right. And people just were glad about it. And there was no need in that moment to protest.
Well, I'm sure, there's obviously more issues around police violence and systemic racism as it relates to law enforcement. And there are still cases right now as we speak of police officers who killed people of color and have not yet faced any accountability for it. We'll keep an eye on those cases, and we'll likely be talking about those as they happen. For now, I'm very glad that the right thing happened in the case of this one guy. Hopefully it's the first of many. Okay, second piece of news. Green New Deal. It's back.
Better than ever.
It's back and better than ever.
Look, I'm all green in support of the Green New Deal.
Really? Did you really dress in green in support of the Green New Deal?
I thought it would be funny.
Oh. It's good to get dressed up for podcasts. I think that's
I washed my hair too.
Alyssa, can you kind of walk people through what the Green New Deal is and who are some of the main political actors who are in support of it?
Okay, so the Green New Deal, the overall goals of the Green New Deal are to reach net zero greenhouse gas emissions, create millions of good-paying jobs, invest in infrastructure, promote justice and equity for historically marginalized communities, and secure clean air and water and resiliency to climate change. Erin, does that sound controversial to you?
Shouldn't be, but it is.
Apparently it is. So some of our faves, including Senator Ed Markey and Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, formally reintroduced it yesterday, a little over 2 years since the Green New Deal was first introduced, with a record 103 co-sponsors.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That's pretty impressive. Also, can we take a moment to give a little shout out to Senator Ed Markey, who is like low key one of Washington's top allies?
I love that guy. And he started his career as an ice cream salesman. That's all you have to know.
That's how you know he's a good dude. I wonder what music he played. Did he play it from like an ice cream? Did he have an ice cream truck or? Well,
it's actually, I could really get into the story about how he took on City Hall because they were trying to outlaw ice cream trucks, but ice cream activist and Green New Deal co-sponsor Ed Markey.
Oh my gosh. I bet he played This Land Is Your Land from his ice cream truck.
I guarantee you it was in the playlist.
So the Green New Deal feels like kind of a no-brainer. Like, yeah,
feels about right?
Yeah, and one thing that I think a lot about as we talk about environmental issues is, there are environmental feminists. There are a lot of women and activists who who understand the tie between feminism and environmentalism. But I think it warrants being talked about more, that pollution and environmental changes impact women. Especially women who have kids. Climate change, in a lot of cases, women who have kids have a more difficult time migrating. A lot of times things that are in our environment impact not just women, but if women have children, it impacts future generations. When like baby girls are born, they're born with all the eggs they're ever going to have.
I did know that.
Which means that whatever her mother is around when she's pregnant is affecting her grandchildren. Like
yes.
it is generational, and it really, really matters. And anybody who cares about the future of humanity should care about this. So here's another thing. This is like a cynical thought that I had about the Green New Deal. There are aspects of the Green New Deal that are they take some of the things that President Biden already has made a priority, and they're to the left of those things, which is about where I am. I'm to the left of a lot of Biden's climate priorities.
And I'm with you.
Yeah. But I almost feel like this could be good for President Biden, because now he's not proposing this thing that is to the left of everything else. Like there's something that exists that's to the left of it. So now Biden's proposals are the centrist option, when before they were to the left. And I hate having to do that calculus in my brain, but that's what it sort of feels like.
Well, and also one component of the Green New Deal, which I think has been sort of fleshed out further in the last 2 years, is that of union jobs. This one, whereas all the Republicans are like, this is killing jobs, and tries to appeal to unions, being like, they're trying to put you out of business. The Green New Deal actually has a plan that creates 20 million union jobs in the United States. So
pretty good stuff.
Pretty good stuff.
This is I'm pro it, and I look forward to the discussion around this. I think that if it's not now, eventually all of the things that are tenets of the Green New Deal will be considered mainstream. That's the nature of just being a progressive, I think.
I mean, look, 20 years ago, did you think all the light bulbs in your house would be LED? Did you even know what LED was? No. Change is a coming.
No, I can't even remember the last time I've changed a light bulb now, because light bulbs last for a very, very long time.
That's exactly right, Erin.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, let's talk about DC statehood, another thing that we have talked about on this show before. Alyssa, should DC be a state?
Yes.
Why?
Yes. Can I tell you a funny thing?
Yes.
When you get to the White House, there are all these decisions you have to make. And one of the decisions that you make is what license plates you put on the Beast, the limo that carries the president. And I went to the president and I said, can we put the no taxation without representation plates on? He's like, do it. So, Erin, the people of Washington, D.C., 712,000 strong, I think, they deserve to be represented. They're the only place in America that doesn't get to vote, that doesn't get a say in what the fuck is happening. So they deserve to be the 51st state, which would be, I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, because this was interesting to me, it would be establishing the state of Washington Douglas Commonwealth, D.C.
I didn't know what Douglas Commonwealth, D.C.? I thought it was District of Columbia.
It was, but if it's a state, it changes. So it would be Douglas Commonwealth, I guess.
Okay, that's interesting. I also want to note that 712,000 residents means that D.C. has more people in it than Vermont and Wyoming, two states that get 2 whole-ass senators each. It's also similar in population to Delaware, Alaska, and several other states. So that argument that there aren't enough people there is bullshit.
It's bullshit. And also, though, we have to remember, this is another argument potentially for the filibuster, getting rid of it, is that this does currently need 60 votes in the U.S. Senate to pass.
How bad are we going to have to perform an electoral massacre in 2022 in order to get anything done? Look, the Senate, I keep feeling good about the Senate in 2022 because all of these cowards are retiring, and the people that run against them are going to be essentially misspelled Facebook memes. And I think that Democrats have a really good shot at really doing some damage, provided they manage their individual campaigns well and they, put up some good candidates and they get voters mobilized. But like, eventually this is going to happen, right? It has to.
It has to, but I mean, Republicans will do anything. Fucking Tom Cotton couldn't get out there fast enough to say why this was a terrible idea. They can fuck themselves, but people, this is something that, because it is important, everybody knows that this does require a 60 vote margin in the U.S. Senate. I mean, take a minute, call your senators.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Today, we are so excited to welcome Shannon Watts back to Hysteria. She's the founder of Moms Demand Action, the nation's largest grassroots organization fighting against gun violence. She's also the undisputed champion of trolling the NRA online, which, as people who appreciate both big sweeping changes and righteous pettiness, we appreciate that. Welcome back, Shannon.
Righteous pettiness. I love that. I've got to put that in my Twitter bio.
That's totally fine. Use it at will. So let's just get to it. This past week, and really since the beginning of 2021, there has been a jarring uptick in mass shootings. Is this all pandemic related, or is something else going on?
It's interesting when you dig into the data. When you look at the last year during COVID, mass shootings actually slowed down. And that's because mass shootings often take place in private residences. They're started by domestic violence. We weren't gathering in homes. We weren't going out in public. So those did slow down. However, it was one of the deadliest years on record for gun violence. And that includes gun homicides. That includes domestic gun violence, unintentional shootings. We're still waiting for data on gun suicides. But we know that really gun violence is an epidemic within a pandemic, and that the COVID crisis exacerbated gun violence, particularly in city centers. And what we're seeing happen right now as we return to normal in America is that these public shootings are resuming. And that's really the logical outcome of allowing gun lobbyists to write our gun laws. There have been about 50 million guns sold in the last year alone. And there were already between 350 million and 400 million guns in this country. So again, what we're seeing play out, both in terms of mass shootings and daily gun violence, is to be expected when you live in a country with so many guns and so few gun laws.
Shannon, what most gun control activists are calling for is not radical. Background checks, banning semi-automatic weapons. What are some of the legislative and messaging barriers that need to be overcome for there to be any meaningful gun reform? How do we upend the argument that this is just the government infringing on people's constitutional rights?
So it's important to be clear about the fact that the only place gun safety is a partisan, polarizing issue is in the U.S. Senate. Because 90% of Americans support stronger gun laws, like a background check on every gun sale, 89% of gun owners, 87% of Republicans. And they have made their desires known at the polling places for the last decade, right? It's how we won the House in 2018. It's how we flipped the General Assembly in Virginia in 2019, won the presidency, Senate, and House in 2020 and 2021. When you look at the issues that drive people to the polls, gun violence has become one of those issues. So it is up to senators to now look at this issue, look at their constituents and what they want, and the fact that their constituents are being killed. 100 Americans every day are killed by gun violence, hundreds more are wounded, and to do the right thing. And it's on all of us to put the pressure on them. And a campaign we have right now is if you text the word checks, CHECKS, to 64433, we will patch you in to your U.S. senators so you can have that conversation with them. But I am hopeful that we are on the precipice of major change at a national level. And the reason that is so important is because we're all only as safe as the closest state with the weakest gun laws.
Yeah, people need to start losing their jobs over this sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the latest with the NRA? We know that New York Attorney General Letitia James has been trying to revoke their nonprofit status, and the NRA filed for bankruptcy, which the AG is challenging. Can you catch our listeners up on what's going on with the court proceedings?
Yeah, it's been fascinating watching them online, which I guess that's part of my righteous pettiness is that I tune in every day to the NRA bankruptcy trial. But, what's coming out is such bizarre behavior for a nonprofit, right? Millions of dollars on private jet travel and Italian suits and trips to the Bahamas. It is not like any other nonprofit in this country. What the NRA has been able to get away with is self-dealing and sweetheart deals like none other. I mean, they're abusing their nonprofit status. So yes, they're under investigation for that. Let's not forget they're also under investigation for being a potential foreign asset. And so all of this is to say that they are weaker than they have ever been as an organization. They're spending tens of millions of dollars on lawyers that they would typically be spending on lobbying against federal and state legislation that would make Americans safer. And our organization is stronger than it's ever been. We're actually larger than the NRA now, and we are beating them in many ways at the state and federal level. But I am really hopeful that the outcome of this bankruptcy trial is that the NRA is just further hobbled. I mean, there's no good news. There's no good outcome for the NRA. Even if they're allowed to declare bankruptcy, they still aren't going to be able to evade Tish James. And she has her sights set on them for sure.
Mm-hmm. And quick follow-up. I know you've been following the trial pretty closely. I've seen you tweeting about it and stuff. Has there been any extraordinary expenditures by the NRA that made you that shocked you? Like, what is the most ridiculous thing the NRA has wasted money on?
Well, what's interesting to me is that every time there's a horrific shooting tragedy in this country, the CEO, Wayne LaPierre, and his minions try to get him into a safe home or a safe yacht. Here, this man has spent decades and millions of dollars telling us the only thing that protects you from bad guys with guns or good guys with guns. But really what Wayne LaPierre is saying is the only thing that will protect you from bad guys with guns is a mansion on a golf course in Dallas or a yacht in the Bahamas. I mean, I would love that too, but that's just not attainable for the average American.
Oh man, our right to bear yachts is being infringed on.
I was going to say Wayne LaPierre watched Succession and thinks he's Logan Roy or something. Well, in this same vein, since money is the name of the NRA game and they are in a lot of trouble with their money, do you think now this means that Republicans will be less beholden and feel more freedom to do the right thing?
It's a very interesting question. I mean, certainly we're having more Republican support in the U.S. House than we've had. The Senate, we're still having those discussions and those negotiations. I mean, some lawmakers are still playing from an old playbook, and it's going to take several election cycles till they see that, we have to show them over and over again, if they do the right thing, we'll have their back. If they do the wrong thing, we'll have their job. And we've done that with Democrats. If you go back to when President Obama was elected in 2008, about a quarter of all Democrats in Congress had A ratings from the NRA. Today, none do. The last one lost his election in 2020. That's been a really important shift in American politics. And when we lost on Manchin Toomey, that was a bipartisan bill in 2013 in honor of the Sandy Hook school shooting that would have closed the background check loophole. We lost by 6 votes in the Senate. 4 of those were Democratic senators. None of them still have their job. So this is how the system works in this country. Sometimes incremental is a dirty word. It's how the system is set up. If you don't show up at every gun bill hearing, if you don't have relationships with your lawmakers, if you don't get involved in electoral politics, you don't have change. And so we've seen that on the Democratic side. We have unanimous support among Democrats. It's really with Republicans where the work is still being done and we're making progress, but we're not there yet.
Because of the frequency in which Americans experience gun violence, how do we make sure that we don't get numb and apathetic to the issue? Like last week, I kind of found myself just being like, I can't right now. So what's something encouraging that's happening in the fight that can keep people aware of the way that things can get better? And what can people who are listening to us right now do to help?
So when we pull our volunteers, and I want to be clear that Moms Demand Action is mothers and others. We're not just women, we're not just moms. But we're led by women. And we also now have Students Demand Action, which are high school and college age students who are getting involved in this issue. So again, we are a huge organization, and people can plug in and get involved in any way they want, electorally, culturally, legislatively. And you can do that by texting the word READY to 64433. When we poll our volunteers, what we find keeps them engaged is the fact that they know we're winning. And I don't think the public necessarily knows that. They're all waiting for this cathartic moment in Congress that hasn't yet happened. But that negates all of the amazing work that's been done over the last decade in state houses, in boardrooms, in city councils, in school boards. We have now closed the background check loophole in 22 states. We have disarmed domestic abusers in 29 states. We've passed something called the red flag law in 19 states. We've closed the Charleston loophole in 19 states. That, on top of all of these other good gun safety laws like reporting lost and stolen guns or requiring secure storage of your firearms, we have a 90% track record of beating back the NRA's agenda in state houses year after year for the last 5 years. That includes killing bills like Stand Your Ground and permitless carry, forcing guns into K-12 schools, forcing guns onto college campuses. On top of that, we've passed policies in hundreds of corporations around open carry or how they sell their guns or prohibiting guns inside their stores. School boards, we have sent our materials home about secure gun storage to over 1 million families across the country. And so all of this work is being done every single day on the ground, knowing that eventually that momentum would point the right president and the right Congress in the right direction. And that's exactly what's happening.
Well, that's great to hear that coming from you, somebody who's so close to the fight. Shannon, we really appreciate the work you're doing. Thank you so much for coming back. And we look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Thank you.